Car headlights. They are essential for driving in the dark. But they have a problem. They can produce significant difficulties for approaching drivers and may even cause accidents due to dazzle and glare. There are three things that combine to produce difficulties: the headlights and their output, the environment, and most importantly, the driver's ability to cope with the glare. So what are the benefits to having bright lights for the driver? The principal one is improved visibility. Bright headlights, especially LED and HID, high-intensity discharge, provide significantly better illumination compared to traditional halogen bulbs. This enhances visibility for the driver, making it easier to see the road, obstacles, and potential hazards at night or in low-light conditions, and at a greater distance. While bright headlights offer improved visibility and safety for the driver, they can also create challenges for other road users due to glare and discomfort. Balancing these benefits and drawbacks is crucial for overall road safety. Glare occurs when visual field brightness is greater than the luminance to which the eyes are adapted. It can be caused by direct and indirect light sources. The two principal types of glare experienced when driving are disability glare and discomfort glare. Disability glare impairs the capability of the eye to perceive small changes in brightness, such as the luminance of a pedestrian in a dark street. While discomfort glare, as its name implies, creates an uncomfortable sensation. There is a trade-off between visibility and glare. For example, research indicates that visibility is improved when opposing vehicles both use high beams, although this creates discomfort glare. Disability glare is created by a light that is so bright that its intensity results in a measurable reduction in a driver's ability to perform visual tasks. This reduction in visual performance is a direct result of the effects of stray light within the eye, which in turn is dependent on the age of the driver. Transient adaptation problems result in a temporary reduction in basic visual functions, such as a drop in contrast sensitivity and shape perception. These occur when the luminance from objects such as shop lighting and dark areas in the visual field of the driver change rapidly. Glaring light, scattered within the eye, causes a veiling effect, which is like a glow or haze that can appear over the image, making it harder to see fine details and reducing overall visual performance. It's particularly problematic in high-contrast scenes such as night driving, where a bright light source is near a faint object, as the glare can obscure the faint object and areas of vision may effectively disappear. This veiling luminance is a function of the glare angle, the angle between the line of sight and the glare source. The automotive headlighting industry has always felt that discomfort glare was more important than disability glare, because discomfort glare is what drivers complain about. However, disability glare may be even more important because it is directly related to the driver's ability to see objects, and thus may be more likely to result in crashes. Generally, driving glare results from a bright, steady, dazzling oncoming headlight, or its reflection from shiny surfaces. It occurs when the luminous intensity or luminance within the visual field is considerably greater than that to which the eyes are adapted. Direct glare is caused by light sources in the field of view, such as headlights, taillights, and luminaires. It is also possible to get reflected glare from polished or glossy surfaces, such as steel or aluminium doors on tractor trailers, a rearview mirror at night, or even bright matte surfaces, such as vehicle interiors and dashboards, that reflect light toward the driver. Glare can also be experienced due to environmental factors, such as fog, rain, snow, or even street lighting. Eye conditions such as cataract, scars on the cornea will produce glare, and some less common eye diseases or medical conditions can produce extreme problems. Glare can affect both day and nighttime driving performance. During the day, sunlight can produce direct glare, and may give rise to indirect difficulties from surface reflections. At night, automobile headlights produce direct glare by shining into the eyes of drivers in approaching cars. Indirect glare is experienced from rearview mirrors and vehicle interiors that reflect light. The effects on drivers are much greater at night than during the day, because at night, drivers are adapted to lower light levels, and so there is a greater range in luminance. Disability and discomfort glare have quite different physiological origins, and so are very difficult to compare. Disability glare comes from light scattering in the ocular media, whereas the sensation of discomfort glare appears to be related to neuronal interactions similar to the pupillary response to light. A consequence of the different behavior of disability and discomfort glare is that when background luminance is low, glare sources may have a disabling effect on vision without being a source of discomfort. Conversely, with sufficient ambient illumination, a glare source may create a discomforting sensation without a measurable disabling effect. Discomfort glare produces a level of subjective discomfort or annoyance. The most popular scale of discomfort glare was first used by DeBoer in 1967, and it allows a quantification of symptoms. There is a scale of 1 to 9, according to the following descriptions. From level 1, unbearable, to level 9, just noticeable. Discomfort glare is generally influenced by 4 major factors. They are the location of glare source relative to the line of sight, the luminance of the background, the luminance and size of the glare source leading to brightness at the eye, and the susceptibility of the person with problems with glare. This appears to be critical. It is also very variable. While the effect of size appears to be small, this reduction in source luminance does reduce the level of discomfort. These are all important when addressing headlight glare. Direct glare in night driving encounters has strong angular or spatial dependence, resulting in eye movements that almost invariably lead to transient changes in the light reaching the eye, and light or dark adaptation. As part of this adaptation process, the retina adjusts to the quantity of light. Although different parts of the retina are routinely exposed to different quantities of light, it is generally assumed that the instantaneous state of adaptation can be described by an equivalent veiling luminance from a light source superimposed on the visual field. The 2 types of glare are affected differently by environmental parameters. Disability glare does not seem to be affected by source size or luminance, but it is affected by luminous flux and the angular offset from the line of sight. For discomfort glare, the apparent source luminance and size are major parameters. As long as the size and position of headlights are kept more or less the same, steps taken to reduce discomfort glare will also reduce disability glare. However, if the size of the headlight source is reduced while keeping the emitted flux constant, the higher headlight luminance will increase discomfort while the disability effects will stay the same. Visual acuity depends on the contrast between the background and the objects to be seen. The presence of glare reduces the ratio of target contrast to threshold contrast. The target is less likely to be seen or drowns completely in the light veil. Lower light levels, such as those on unlit roads at night, are associated with a state of night myopia. That is, most people become more short-sighted at night, and, when driving, it is particularly important. This well-established phenomenon is a result of movement of the accommodative system toward a resting state. And it has been found to peak at 1.52 diopters, which is significant, and frighteningly, it can get to a much greater level. Many drivers wear some type of corrective lenses to improve their ability to see objects in the distance. But at night, if a driver is already myopic, there could be a significantly increase in his myopia. If hyperopic, it would reduce, and it is possible that he could even become effectively myopic wearing his spectacles. A person with no prescription may need a correction at night, but not in daylight. Although not a standard test, an optometrist can test in low lighting conditions. It seems bizarre that it is not routine. There are several main types of headlights available. Halogen bulbs are the traditional choice, known for their affordability and ease of replacement, though they offer a shorter lifespan and yellowish light. Its color temperature is around 3000 degrees Kelvin. Xenon HID bulbs provide a brighter, whiter light and have a longer lifespan, but they are more expensive and require a ballast. The color temperature varies from around 4300 Kelvin to 6000. LED bulbs are highly energy efficient with a long lifespan and bright light output, though they come at a higher initial cost and may require vehicle modifications. Their color temperatures usually are between 5 and 6000 Kelvin. Laser bulbs represent the cutting edge of headlight technology, delivering extremely bright light and precise beam control, but they are costly and not widely available. They can have much higher color temperatures and are typically around 8000 Kelvin, but can get higher. Let's compare their spectral output. Their spectral outputs are very different, and it is clear from this that sensitivity to one does not mean sensitivity to all. Sensitivities to glare depend on the interaction of the light and the person who is processing it. Headlights are common to everyone on the road, but the responses vary massively. It is possible to modify the light arriving at the eye by placing a filter in between the headlight and the eye. But the filter has to be individually determined depending on sensitivity and the spectra that they are sensitive to. The street lights and daylight also play a part in glare. These two have markedly different spectra. Brightness of artificial lights and daylight varies massively. In daylight it varies by a factor of around 60, with twilight being even greater. The weather and time influence the brightness by a significant amount. Headlights are much less bright than daylight at the eye, but they still cause great problems. But they are significantly lighter than nighttime. When it comes to headlight performance, there are clear differences in brightness levels among the three main types of headlights. Starting with halogen headlights, at a distance of 25 feet or 7.6 meters, they produce around 1792 lux. However, it's important to note that this lux level decreases as the distance increases. Moving on to LED headlights, these are notably brighter than halogen, delivering approximately 3584 lux at the same distance of 25 feet. Finally, the HID, xenon, headlights are the brightest among the three, providing about 6272 lux at 25 feet. To put these numbers into perspective, consider direct sunlight, which can reach about 100,000 lux. On an overcast day, the lux level ranges between 1000 and 2000 lux. This comparison helps to better understand the relative brightness of each headlight type in real-world conditions. First, light enters the eye through the cornea and lens, which focus it onto the retina at the back of the eye. This is where the processing begins. The retina contains photoreceptor cells, known as rods and cones, that detect light intensity and color. These cells convert the light into electrical signals. These electrical signals travel via the optic nerve to the lateral geniculate nucleus, LGN, in the brain. From the LGN, the signals are sent to the primary visual cortex, V1, in the occipital lobe. Here, the brain processes basic visual information such as edges, colors, and movements. Finally, the processed visual information is sent to other brain areas, like the parietal and temporal lobes, for higher-level integration and interpretation. This allows us to recognize objects, perceive depth, and understand the entire visual scene. Our eyes contain 3 types of cone cells, each responsible for detecting different wavelengths of light. First, we have the S-cones, which detect short wavelengths and allow us to see blue colors. These cones are less common and more sparsely distributed across the retina. Next, the M-cones handle medium wavelengths, helping us perceive green colors. They are more abundant than S-cones and distributed throughout the retina. Lastly, the L-cones are sensitive to long wavelengths, enabling us to see red colors. These cones are the most common and densely packed in the retina. Now, let's talk about the concept of univariance, as it is critical when determining optimum methods of reducing glare. Univariance is the principle that a single type of photoreceptor can only inform us about the intensity of light, not its wavelength. This means that different wavelengths can produce the same response in a cone cell if their intensities are identical. To achieve color vision, our brains compare the responses from the different types of cones. By analyzing the relative activation levels of S, M, and L cones, our brains can infer the color of the light entering our eyes. The electrical signals from the photoreceptors are passed to bipolar cells. These cells act as intermediaries, conveying signals from the photoreceptors to the ganglion cells. Horizontal cells help integrate and regulate input from multiple photoreceptors, providing contrast enhancement and edge detection. Amacrine cells influence the output of bipolar cells, contributing to temporal aspects of vision such as motion detection. Lateral inhibition is a neural process that enhances contrast and sharpness in visual perception by inhibiting the activity of neighboring neurons. This process is crucial for edge detection and detail resolution. At night, when intense light from headlights enters the eye, the photoreceptors directly stimulated by the light inhibit the activity of their neighboring photoreceptors. This inhibition enhances the contrast between the bright headlights and the dark environment, resulting in the perception of radiating lines or a star effect around the headlights. This phenomenon illustrates how our visual system processes high-contrast images to help us see clearly in low-light conditions. In the primary visual cortex, or V1, color opponent cells are essential for distinguishing between different colors. These cells respond to the varying signals from the 3 types of cone cells in our eyes. Next, let's discuss the interaction between brightness and color. This process also takes place in the primary visual cortex. When there's a difference in brightness between an object and its surroundings, it can cause the color of the object to appear desaturated. In other words, the object may seem less colorful. This effect occurs mainly due to inhibitory signals generated by local brightness contrasts at the boundary between the target and its surroundings. Color opponency was first proposed by Ewald Heering in the 19th century, and it is also important to understand why color has an effect on glare. According to this theory, the human visual system interprets colors in terms of opposing pairs, red or green, blue or yellow. This is because certain colors cannot be perceived simultaneously. For example, there is no such thing as a reddish-green or a bluish-yellow. Red and green are considered opposites. When red and green light are mixed, they create yellow. This mixing doesn't blend them into a muddy color. Instead, it creates a new, distinct color perception. Yellow and blue are also considered opposites. When yellow and blue light are mixed, they create white. This happens because yellow light stimulates both the red and green photoreceptors, while blue stimulates the blue photoreceptors. When these signals are balanced, the result is perceived as white light. The 1931 CIE chromaticity diagram is a graphical representation of color based on human vision. It maps all perceivable colors in a 2D space defined by X and Y coordinates. In this diagram, opponent colors are located across from each other. For example, red is opposite to green, and blue is opposite to yellow. These pairs highlight the concept of color opponency, where certain colors cannot be perceived simultaneously. When 2 opponent colors are combined, they produce new colors along the line connecting them. Headlights follow the blue to yellow line and are of differing colors. This means that a person with a problem with yellow lights can reduce difficulties by reducing red or green or both, or alternatively, by increasing blue. With a problem with blue light, then reducing the blue response or increasing the red-green input can be beneficial. It is, however, more complex due to the spikiness of the light spectra emitted by headlights of different types. In our visual system, two key pathways process visual information, the magnocellular and parvocellular pathways. These pathways differ in their response times and roles in processing visual stimuli. The magnocellular pathway is characterized by a fast response time and is primarily involved in motion detection and broad visual scene analysis. It responds quickly to changes in light intensity, including the perception of motion, but is not specialized for detailed color detection. In contrast, the parvocellular pathway has a slower response time and is specialized for high-resolution tasks such as color discrimination and fine detail analysis. This pathway processes visual information more gradually, allowing for detailed and accurate perception of colors, including yellow, green, and blue. Notably, it takes longer for the brain to process blue than yellow due to the differences in wavelength and how our visual system is tuned to these colors. The difference in processing times for colors like blue and yellow highlights the problems not just in spatial position of the headlight beam on the retina, but also the timing difficulties due to brightness and color. Refractive correction, as in glasses or contact lenses, have little effect on glare. Anti-reflection coatings are often suggested as anti-glare lenses. However, they have little effect, although they may reduce some halos. In some cases, they can adversely affect glare from oncoming headlights by increasing transmission. They do reduce internal reflections with lenses, and this is usually beneficial. They are never used without a refractive correction for glare reduction. Photochromic lenses do not work at night, but some are marketed with a pre-tint. Polarized lenses may reduce some glare, but they stop around 50% of light or more, and it is not clear whether it is the drop in brightness that is important or the polarization. They are more beneficial if light is reflected. Standard optical tinted lenses are usually broad spectrum, and as such they are usually too dark to be acceptable. Yellow tinted lenses are often sold by non-registered outlets, and these are usually considered unacceptable by optical professionals. This means that filters are often the best option to reduce headlight glare, but there are real problems in prescribing. The regulations appear clear, but they are in fact poor and ambiguous. Research has suggested that lights with a color temperature nearest white cause the least problems, where blue and yellow are both implicated in glare production. Street lighting and conditions such as fog, rain, and snow may also influence prescribing. In addition, professional training in tints and filters is minimal, and there are few practices which have instrumentation which can address the difficulties encountered. Regulatory and professional bodies seem to avoid this area as the problems have been known for over 70 years and still they have not addressed fundamental issues. The General Optical Council in the UK have no mention of the requirement to assess for and prescribe tints competently in their core competencies. There are ways to prescribe color to international standards. The 1931 diagram has been around a long time, and brightness is also well understood. Tolerances of an individual can be specified in terms of the color space area for the individual. This area is called a gamut, and lenses can be calculated from this specification to give optimum performance in any lighting situation. To stop headlight glare requires that optical professionals use specialist instrumentation. They also need training, as only a few practices have the ability to determine this. They also need the ability to use this to determine the lens to optimize vision at night. Standard optometric lenses are of limited value, but specialist lenses such as the UK-made Hoya Videx range can be beneficial. They do, however, require additional training and instrumentation to supply, as there is a significant increase in knowledge necessary from that of in standard optical training. In terms of the light transmission stated in the standards, it is strange that they have been accepted without specifying the initial lighting. It makes them a bit of a nonsense, even if at first glance, they seem reasonable. There has been little research in this area, and much that has been done contradict the idea of not using tinted lenses. The standards do not seem to have a good rationale for night driving restriction, and it is obvious that as many find yellow tinted lenses beneficial, they should be considered seriously. But it seems that in some cases they will be worse. But is it good to buy them over the counter without evaluation of effect? Probably not. But there are some complexities. Tinted saturated band filters selectively allow light of specific wavelengths to pass through while blocking others. They enhance the saturation of particular colors, making those colors appear more vivid. However, they might not significantly change the overall brightness of the image because they only affect a narrow range of wavelengths. Darker broadband filters reduce the intensity of light across a wide range of wavelengths. They decrease the overall brightness of the image but don't selectively enhance any particular color. Instead, they create a uniformly dimmer image. They can sometimes be indistinguishable even though their effects can be very different. The brain processes brightness, luminance, and color, chrominance, in separate channels. When viewing an object through either type of filter, the brain integrates the information from both channels to form a final perception. But should optical professionals prescribe? The answer is that they have trained in vision for years, and, if they get up to speed, they are undoubtedly the best to manage these difficulties. But it does need training, instrumentation, and a change of attitude. I would go so far as to make it mandatory to either refer or be trained. The current situation is untenable. In the meantime, what can you do? Keep your spectacles, headlights, and windscreen clean. And be kind. The manufacturer's role. Manufacturers are responsible for designing and producing vehicle headlights that minimize glare while maximizing visibility. By improving headlight alignment and developing adaptive lighting systems. In the end, the person facing the headlight has to take responsibility, as it is impossible to make a headlight suitable for everyone. They have a duty to ensure safety when driving, and the only way this is possible is by using filters. We now can address problems with these legally. And finally, the best news. I have just submitted a patent which will allow professionals to assess headlight glare and which tints eliminate it. If you wish to get involved, please email me at sensorprocessingcenter@mail.com. I am looking for partners to finance development and commercialization worldwide.